It's time to talk about another form of expressions, which are Boolean and relational expressions. And my first question to you is, can you give me an example of a relational expression? So I'm being very careful about this. All right? I'm saying, give me an example of a relational expression. So hit that pause button and give it a shot. Okay, well, a relational expression is an expression that allows you to compare two values. Okay, so they could be any values. You could compare two dogs, or you could compare two integers, or you compare two strings. And so a relational expression might look something like this: A less than B. So this is the relational operator. Now, when you have a programming language, almost every programming language is going to give you the ability to create these or construct these relational expressions. So if I were to ask you to list all of the relational expressions that you might need to have, or sorry, relational operators that you might need to work with, what would those be? Oh, by the way, the relational expression returns true, some form of true in the language. Okay, so what are all the relational operators? Well, see if you can list them. Hit pause and then listen and see what your answers look like compared to mine. All right, so hit pause. And now we're back. So less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. So these are pretty common across all of the languages. What's not common is there's really no consistency in how you specify not equals. So if you were specifying not equals, some language will say, you know, well, you might have this, not equals. You might have not equals. You might have not equals. So it's going to depend on the language that you're working with. Same thing with equals. You might have this representing equals. In some languages, this represents equals, which is sort of interesting. And then if you want to do an assignment, to assign a value, you might have something like this. So that's assignment. And that's equals. That's a comparison. So two different values. So that's pretty common if you're trying to, if you're working with a language, these you're going to see a lot of similarities across languages. But when you get to how you do comparisons with equals and not equals, you're going to have to look it up because every language has their own way of doing that. Okay, so now what I want you to do is try to give me an example of a Boolean expression. An example of a Boolean expression. Okay, so A less than, whoops, let me stop. And so I want you to try it. See if you can come up with a Boolean expression. All right, hit pause and then, now we're back. All right, so A less than B and C. So this is going to return a Boolean, true or false. The whole expression here is going to return a Boolean. And this C, we're assuming, is also some form of Boolean. And this is a Boolean operator. All right, so see if you can list the Boolean operators that you might have in a typical language. So what are these Boolean operators? Can you list them? So the Boolean operators, so go ahead, take a shot, see if you can list them. And I'm going to spill the beans now. So the Boolean operators are not, and or. So this is not, and or. And different languages have different ways of expressing this. Interestingly, the precedence, this is also the correct precedence. Of the operators for Java and C++. But in Ada, all these operators have the same precedence. All right, cool. All right, so that's like a quick toe dip into Boolean expressions. Now let's take a look at assignment statements. This is the last thing I wanted to do when talking about expressions. So we have assignment statements. So there's a bunch of flavors. So first of all, we have simple assignment statement. So in Fortran, basic C-based, we use the following operator. We use equal. And what that does is it avoids confusion between an assignment, where you're setting one value to another, and a comparison, where you're comparing two values, right? So there's no confusion with equal, the comparison operator. But unfortunately, it's possible to have something like this: A equals B equals C. That's really confusing. So we're having both an assignment and relational. So that's not so great. So it's possible to have these expressions which have both equal and equal. And the real issue here is something called a keying error. So what I mean by that is, was this equal here, was that really supposed to be an equal, and the programmer just mistyped it, or did they really mean to do an assignment there? And it's just really confusing. I think it's just a bad practice to have that assignment operator inside an expression that's being evaluated for whether it's true or false. But basically inside any expression. Okay, so the equal is good if you don't allow assignments inside of expressions. It's not so great if you do, because then there's confusion when you have also have that relational operator equal in the expression. All right. So we also have conditional assignment. This is just revisiting that ternary operator that we talked about at the beginning of this discussion on expressions. So we have flag, question mark, count 1, colon, count 2 equals 0. So what this is going to do is, if this is true, then count 1 is equal to 0. If it's false, then count 2 is equal to 0. Right? So I would say that I don't use this very often. So, and actually I think it's kind of unusual to see it. I think it's probably better to write code that's like this. If flag, then count 1 equals 0, else count 2 equals 0. This is a much more compact version of that. But I think that, so you could argue that maybe this is okay from a writability standpoint, but I think from a readability standpoint it can be a little bit confusing. So I don't really recommend it. Okay, so we also have compound assignment operators. So those are assignment operators where you have some kind of shorthand. So that would be something like sum plus equals value. And so here what we're doing is we are adding sum and value together. It's really equivalent to sum equals sum plus value. Okay. Cool. And then we also have unary operators. So unary operators are operators like sum equals plus plus count. And in this situation, we're going to, well, actually, let's do this. Back up for a second. So unary means plus plus count, and count plus plus. Okay. And finally, we have assignment as an expression. This is one I really don't recommend. So an assignment as an expression is something like this. I'll write it down here. While ch equals get char not equal to end of file. And so this is really nice, right? So what we're doing here is we're getting the character. We're checking to see if we're setting it to ch equal to the character that we're returning from the file. And then we're checking to see if that character is the end of file character. If it's not, we're going to drop in and execute some code in here. So it is useful in certain situations. This is an expression that's doing a comparison. but it also has that assignment operator in there. I told you a little bit earlier, this is usually a recipe for confusion, but it can be convenient sometimes. I think as a programmer that's written lots of code over decades, it's just not something I would recommend. Okay, so let's talk about how having assignments as expressions, assignments in expressions can get really confusing, because this isn't so bad what we're looking at here. All right, so here's an example. Let's say A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, C is equal to 3, and D is equal to 4. And here's an expression. A equals B plus C equals D. Oops. Divided by B plus plus minus 1. Okay, so there's a lot of bad stuff in here, okay? We are doing a plus plus inside an expression and having the result of that operator be used further in the expression. We're doing an assignment in the expression as well. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take this and tell me what you think the answer is going to be. All right? So take a second, hit pause, tell me what you think the answer is going to be. Okay, so I think we did this one in class, but it's good to review it again. So given all this, we're really talking about A equals B, which is 2, plus C equals D. So we're saying C is equal to 3 divided by B plus plus, which is 2 plus plus minus 1. All right. Oops, D is 4. Oh, yeah, I messed this up. Sorry about that, folks. Let me get this right here. C equals D, which is 4, divided by 2 plus plus. Okay, cool, minus 1. All right, so we've got to evaluate what's in here first. So that's going to be equal to 2 plus C equals 4. Okay, so it's 4 divided by 2 plus plus. Actually, I'm going to put B back there because we do change B. All right, so it's 4 divided by 2 plus plus. Well, the plus plus means, I'm going to put B plus plus in here again. This plus plus means that the value of B is returned before the expression is evaluated. So B plus C equals 4 divided by 2. But we also have to note that B has been incremented by 1. So B is no longer 2, it's 3 minus 1. And then that is equal to B plus C now has the value of, so B is equal to 3 here. C now has the value of 4 divided by 2, which is 2. C is equal to 2. And then we're going to have B plus 2 minus 1, so that's 3 plus 2 minus 1, which is equal to 4. So when we're all said and done, A is equal to 4, B is equal to 3, C is equal to 2, and D is equal to 4. So that's the answer. That is really confusing. There's this interesting kind of side effect in the expression. We're incrementing that B, and the result of that increment is going to be something that is depending on the order of evaluation. That's the thing. If we're going this way, maybe is B remains 2 when we do the initial addition. But if we're going this way, and who knows, depending on the compiler, which way we're going, what the actual answer is going to be. So it's a little bit confusing. Okay. Well, that ends our discussion of expressions. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is control flow through a program. So that's coming up next. Stay tuned.